Hello everybody, John here again. I've seen one or two videos over the weekend, past few days actually, posted by people, not many, but one or two, that are sort of specifically about the protest that's happening at the moment, about what happened to George Floyd in America. And I felt that I would really like to sort of show my solidarity with that concern and people involved. I'm not going to sort of sit here and speak as a privileged white man about these issues, because to be honest with you, I'm not really confronted with it every day the way many people are in the world, and it just wouldn't seem right to even sort of proclaim any kind of understanding of how it must be to always sort of have that threat hanging over you. But what I would like to do instead is talk a bit about one or two things as my way of showing solidarity for that movement. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this record here. This is a compilation record that was released in 1980. It's called Rock Against Racism. In 1978, I believe it was, in a concert in Birmingham, England, Eric Clapton, who was in a pretty poor state personally, I think, at the time, with drugs and alcohol addiction and things, he sort of disgraced himself during a concert and spoke a lot about his support for Enoch Powell. Enoch Powell was a right-wing, extreme right-wing politician we had here in Britain at the time, and he sort of headed up a party called the National Front. I can remember in 1980 I would have been 10, and I can remember when I was at school, comprehensive school, high school, say here, there was a lot of kids in my school, probably about 4 or 5 in every class, particularly boys, that were essentially skinheads. You know, they had their hair shaved right off, and they would wear great big Dr. Martin boots to school, and sort of draw swastikas and things in their textbooks and things. I never really understood what all that was about, but it wasn't uncommon for them to, shout racial slurs at people from different racial backgrounds that they might see at school. As a grown-up now, I can look back on that and think to myself, it's really horrendous that. Obviously these kids, they were too young to really know what they were doing. And as a grown-up now, I can say, well, I understand that whatever political views or whatever that they would have gained through their own families, through their own parents. But it's kind of shocking, really, to think that, late 70s, early 80s, we're talking about 30 years or so after World War II, that there should be such a, terrible movement happening in Great Britain at that time, political movement. Fortunately, there was a lot of people that recognised that and stood against it. So when Eric Clapton, said the things that he did at concert, he sort of proclaimed his support and everything about this Enoch Powell, and he expressed some ridiculous things about keeping Britain white, which in itself is so absurd, since Eric Clapton, was so, his whole career was built on, taking everything he could out of from blues music and R&B music, and you just think, Eric, if we sucked everything that was black out of your music, not really going to be anything left, you know. So he's really shooting himself in the foot there. I do understand that, you know, many times after that he has, you know, expressed his shame and said, you know, how he wasn't really himself. I'm not going to really cast judgment on that, but I think really what happened when it happened, you know, when he made these announcements on stage and things, it was a, you know, a pretty bleak time here in the UK. So yeah, it just so happened that some journalists wrote about it, and when the article got published that they wrote about, a lot of people contacted them saying, where can I join this club of yours, or this sort of group of yours? They called it Rock Against Racism. There was no club. It hadn't sort of been formed. It was just basically an article that they'd written and had published in a newspaper. So on the back of this article written by Roger Huddle and others, there was this idea of having a big concert, which they had in Victoria Park in London. There's not a lot of footage of that, but I think there is some footage from the side of the stage of the clash. But there were, yeah, other places around the UK, towns and cities, that felt the same, and they sort of organised also their own concerts and carnivals in support of this whole movement. Yeah, it was sort of together with the Anti-Nazi League, I understand, which I think is another sort of political campaign that was happening at the same time. Anyway, so it brings me to this record. This is a compilation album and put together under the name of Rock Against Racism. I think really it would be nice, wouldn't it, if it was sort of live performances from these various gigs, but sadly it's not. But what it is, it's a compilation of rock, so punk rock, and also reggae and two-tone music that sort of, yeah, were sort of hits of people that were active in this movement at the time. So this is my way of showing solidarity with this movement, the protesters for George Floyd's murder by the police in America. And I would like to encourage everybody out there in YouTube land, and particularly in the vinyl community, to be a part of the solution. And I think you can do that by simply just not giving oxygen to anything that you know, counteracts this sense of racial equality. I think we all have a part to play in that. Okay, thank you very much everybody. Check out my next video. Bye.